In this video, we are going to talk about typography. Typography refers to text styling. And with typography, we set the mood and feeling of a website and of a text. So typography is something extremely important which you need to consider when designing our website. With typography, we can influence how the reader perceives our website and how he reads our text. For example, by making a part of a text bold, we get the reader's attention to focus on that bold part. Fonts refers to different interpretations of typography. So we have 4 different fonts on this screen here. We generally differentiate between 3 different fonts. On the left top-hand corner, we have what we refer to as serif fonts. Serif meaning these fonts have little feet and on some of the letters. Sans serif fonts are fonts without these tiny feet. If you compare the age of the sans serif font with the serif font, serif fonts tend to portray a bit more traditional feeling. They tended to be used in newspapers and older books and give it this classic feeling, whereas sans serif fonts give it a bit more dynamic, young feeling and tend to be easier to read on the screen. Hence, you see a lot of sans serif fonts being used these days, especially on digital products. The bottom 2 fonts are what we refer to as more decorative fonts. They tend to be harder to read, and you don't want to portray too much text with them and don't want to overuse them because they create a lot of loudness on your website. So generally, it's advisable to mostly use, besides choosing our font, we also have to think about the font weight. So if we decide on a font, there are a lot of different weights available. Here we have one font. It's always the same font, but with completely different weight. With weight, we mean the heaviness, the thickness of the font. The heavier the weight, the bolder, the thicker the font. So this is the thickest version available, and this is the thinnest version available. And you can see the thinner version portrays a completely different feeling than the really heavy, bold version. In Webflow, we can adjust the font weight by just in the typography section choosing its weight. Generally, weights tend to go from 900 to 100, and we have a lot of choice there. When choosing your font, you don't have to stick necessarily to one font. We can mix and match. So serif and sans serif mix very well together. There's a saying, opposites attract each other, and that can be very much true for fonts. Here we have a serif heading and a sans serif text. And using a serif and sans serif mix, we can create structure on the page again. We could also adjust the serif subheading to something sans serif, and it would still fit well together, giving it a similar feel. However, it's advisable not to use more than 2 fonts on your same page or for the same text elements, because otherwise it creates too much loudness, too much noise on your page. And the other thing is that the fonts will have to be loaded by the browser. So when the browser downloads our website, the fonts are sent over as a package from the server. And the more fonts we use, the more it needs to be sent, the slower our website loads. And that influences, again, the user experience of our website. So instead of adding a 3rd font here, you could, if you want to create a different structure, play around with the font weight instead of choosing a 3rd font. Webflow gives us a range of different fonts which we can integrate into our project. If we go back to the typography section, we can see we have a good range of fonts to choose from. However, you might find there's no font amongst these fonts which really fits to your project. Then Webflow gives us the opportunity to import fonts from other parties. One good source of other fonts is Google Fonts. Google Fonts is an open source project by Google, and they give away free fonts in order for us to integrate into our website. They have a whole range of different fonts, and I really encourage you to browse around here and look for fonts that might fit your needs. For our website, we are going to make use of a font called Roboto. Roboto is a font which I think has been designed by Google itself, and it's specifically made for reading on the screen. You probably have seen it before. I think it's very popular amongst Android apps. And specifically, we are going to make use of two versions of the Roboto font. First of all, the normal Roboto, which is meant for most of our text. And then we will make use of Roboto Slab for a few heading elements. So let's go about and integrating that into our Webflow website. Going back to the Webflow side, we can choose project settings. And then go to fonts. And here it allows us to integrate Google Fonts. We can also upload custom font files if you have a different font file which isn't hosted on Google Fonts, or integrate Adobe fonts. I assume you probably won't have that unless you are a user of Adobe Creative Clouds. But some fonts are not available on Google Fonts, and then you can upload them here. However, luckily for us, Roboto is available, so let's integrate that. And we want to make use of several different weights here. We want to use the lighter version and a bit of a heavier version. And again, we really want to only integrate the font weights we really need. Otherwise, all these other weights are getting loaded into the browser as well, which slows down our website and reduces the user experience, or makes our website harder to use for the end visitor. And then we want to integrate Roboto Slab. And here we need a few more weights. Okay, now we have added the weights to our Webflow project.